Okay, very special episode today. For my second sit down, I'm sitting here with Emily Koch. She is the co-founder and owner of Koch and Kikkonen Communications, or KKC for short. They, I should say, have a studio, which we're in right now, called KUVAHAUS, which we're going to touch on a bit. And most importantly, she is my girlfriend. So, without further ado, Emily Koch. Give me a handshake, Emily.
My hands are sweaty.
There you go. Okay. Emily, where are we right now?
We are in KUVAHAUS, which is a brand new studio space that Paige, my business partner, and I opened up about a month ago, actually. And we decided to open a studio space, because it's something we've wanted to do for a really long time. So we've kind of been thinking about it and planning it. And then we had an opportunity fall in our laps to be in this space a few months ago. So we hopped on it because we weren't sure if we would ever get an opportunity like this again. So KUVAHAUS is a just under 2,000 square foot studio. It is a mid-century modern home, completely renovated to be very Scandinavian and neutral. That is what we looked for in a studio space. And so when we came up with this idea, we knew that's what we wanted it to be. So it could be a very neutral background for any sort of brand. And we decided to name it KUVAHAUS because my background is German. So house is house in English.
In German?
House is house in German.
Yes.
And then Kuva is photo in Finnish. So Paige's background is Finnish and my background is German.
Nice. And we're going to have Paige on this as well. She's just out of town right now, and I wanted to get one up with Emily too. So Paige, if you're watching this, you'll be on it. And you can't get away from it if you don't want to be on it. So too bad. What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you about the studio. Usually when I start these, it's the first half is, or how I want to do it and what I did in the first one. The first half is more personal, more about you, more all that stuff. So the first question I want to ask you is,
God.
Who is Emily Koch?
I knew that's what you were going to say. Who is Emily Koch? Who's James Frechner? No, I think that at my core, am just someone who, I'm a people person. I want to be creative, but I also like to do my own thing. I am very independent, but work also well with a lot of other people. And, you know, when I was young, I knew I wanted to be in some sort of like creation space. I originally wanted to be a journalist. So a little bit different from what I'm doing now, but I knew I liked writing. I liked the idea of capturing stories, whether it be through photo or video. And that was from the age of like 13. I even would watch the news and I would like recap what I had listened to and like write my own little articles and like source my own images and everything. So that I think at the core was just like the storytelling, wanting to be creative and like capture people and content. Then I went to journalism school and actually worked in journalism a little bit. Didn't want to go the journalistic route. And so that's kind of where I am today. But long story short, I just like to do my own thing, but I like to be creative with it, and capture stories is a big thing.
Nice. Okay, so if I were to ask you to describe yourself in 3 words, what's the 3 words you'd give me?
Oh, 3 words. Independent. Empathetic, for sure. And I would say driven, almost to the point of being stubborn, because I don't like to stop. And when I want to do something, or if I have a point to prove, I will kind of do it at any cost. So those are kind of like the 3 words that I would choose.
Okay, now if I were to ask...
That's kind of horrible, actually. Like, I'm also like loving and kind. But...
Okay. This doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. You can just be like...
Yeah, but I agree with that.
General.
Though.
Okay. Now, if I were to ask the closest people around you, Paige, myself, your family, maybe select close friends, what are the 3 words they would describe you as?
I think empathetic for sure. I get emotional quite often, or I just like understand like where people are coming from. I would also like to think independent. I've always prided myself individually on that, and I feel like I showcase that a lot in my own life. So I would like to say that. And then, I don't know, like, I'm not like funny, but like funny, or like I feel like you would describe me as clumsy or
Goofy?
goofy
Is that the word
maybe?
you're looking
Like,
for?
yeah, I don't know. Like, I just, I can come off professionally when I want to, but at the end of the day, like I just like to chat with people and like be silly and like myself. I don't know. I don't like to
Just chat
take
shit.
I don't like to take things super seriously. So something in and around that.
Okay. So the two that stand out to me there are the driven one, because you went on a little bit of a tangent on that one, and the independent one that you pride yourself on that.
Yeah, tangent queen.
Yeah. I think those kind of go hand in hand, the driven part and the independent part. The driven one, you were talking about how you need to prove a point sometimes.
Yes.
So it's like the stubbornness, which also goes hand in hand with being independent in that way and doing it independently. Can you expand on those a little bit more?
Wait, driven and what was the other one?
Independent. Independent was what your friends, you think your close people would describe you
Yes,
as?
and I said driven.
Yeah.
Independent first. Again, I when I was young, I knew what I wanted to do, and then I knew I wanted to go away for school. So I'm originally from, as you know, from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I moved to Ottawa when I was 18. And I think that move, like being away from my family, I didn't know anybody in Ottawa. That really kickstarted me wanting to be like just doing things for myself, or like if I didn't know how to do something, like figuring it out and like just being like, okay, well, there's no other choice. I got to figure it out, and I'm the only one that can do it. Obviously, I've had friends and family and amazing support, but again, I think that's also prideful of me. I just like to say that I can do something, or at least try it. So yeah, that's been something I've always been really proud of myself for, and like the fact that like everything I've done has come from me and from my drive and just like want to like do something. And that comes out in so many different ways. So that's why I say independent, because if you know me, I can be sort of stubborn in that way where I want to do something like myself. And then I think the drive part, yeah, independent and drive go hand in hand. I wouldn't be where I am right now, if I wasn't independent and I lean on Paige, my business partner, a lot, but if I didn't know how to work on my own and be self-disciplined, and then drive, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here, especially in school and in journalism. It's a pretty tough program, and having worked in journalism when I came out of school, it's not an easy industry to be in, and there's a lot of criticism you take, and sometimes like you have to deal with a lot of different types of people. So if I wasn't able to just be driven and see like there was a goal, or I just wanted to do something with myself, I just wouldn't be where I am now. So I'm just super, super driven and determined to be great.
Nice. To be great.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
it. Can you give like just a quick little rundown on how you and Paige got started in the business? Because I think it's interesting, because a lot of people like have these like maybe like, oh, like I was upset with my job and then quit and really wanted to do my own thing and went into that same industry and like took over, or I don't know, I learned a certain skill here and then jumped into it. But yours was kind of like accidental.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as accidental. I think we started, so we're almost 4.5 years into business. And when we started, it was peak COVID. So her and I weren't working. There was nothing to do. Like we were on lockdown. We were actually in our 4th year at university. And we just kind of like classes were online. We were kind of bored, and we knew we had this really incredible skill set, but we both knew we didn't want to go into journalism. So, or at least we didn't want that to be our career for the rest of our lives. So we said, you know what, screw it. Why don't we try to just make some money with like the skills that we have? And we had taken a strategic communications course actually that like semester when we decided to start the business. And we had a prof who was very pro, like, be an entrepreneur or just have a side hustle. Like you have so many skills, like utilize them and you can do it. Hang a shingle sort of idea. So we said, okay, let's do it. So we sat down, like emailed her and had a quick sit down, and then basically just said, okay, well, I guess we register a business name. We didn't know what to call it. So we said, okay, well, we're in a comms class and we have last names that start with the same letters. So well, let's do that. And then set up a business bank account, and then we were kind of off to the races from there. But it really started as, how do we use the skills that we have to make kind of a little bit of money when we weren't working, and then like snowballed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you recall kind of your thoughts when you were starting the company?
just being like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I didn't even really consider it like a business, I think at the time, which sounds silly, but like I had the like mindset that I needed to start like a product or an app or be in tech or AI or something at the time. And I didn't realize you could do something like the skills that you have can be transformed into a service. So I don't even think I pictured it as being like a business or like my like being an entrepreneur. Like I just thought it was like monetizing a skill set, which obviously that's a business, but that just being like, okay, let's just do something, whatever. And then what the hell am I doing? You know, having no idea what even running a business entailed, like the whole business, like finance side of it or client management. Like we learned as we went. So it was just really a feeling of like flying free. And her and I relying on each other and being like, all right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
What, did you guys have any specific goals when you started?
Literally, not really. Like I think the goal that I can think of from the early days was her and I wanted to make enough money to like cover our rent. And that's all we wanted, which was like a couple grand. And then we kind of hit that and we were like, okay, like what's next? When we first started, it was just something to do because we weren't working and we thought it was cool. And we were like, oh my God, like, and then we got our first client and we were like, oh wow, like we have a client. But the only goal I can think of is, okay, let's just try to make enough money to cover our rent because that's what it was at the time. It wasn't
You guys lived together.
we lived together.
Yeah.
We didn't when we first started, but it was like a few months down the road that we moved in together, which is also crazy because not only was I was living with my best friend, but also my business partner, we were together all the time. But yeah, we didn't have any big goals of like taking over the world or like, wanting to take it full time. That never even crossed our mind.
And you hit the goal pretty quickly, if I remember.
Yeah, I would say we hit that goal. Initially, we said we would take in 50% of our revenue and then we would split that. So each of us got 25% of what we made in a month, which at the beginning was like a few $100s, which felt like a lot. Especially when I was a student and I was used to making $800, $900 a month.
Yeah.
And then when we moved in, I would say, yeah, probably like 4 to 6 months down the road from when we started, we made enough to cover our rent, again, which was a couple grand. And we were like, okay. And then we just kind of kept going from there. But yeah, it didn't take too long, but that's also because we didn't have much overhead. I think that was the big thing too, was we didn't start a company that needed, initially we needed all this equipment or a space for our staff. It was just us. So we were able to also save up money, and the revenue that we made every month just basically went to us and then we saved it. So that was also how we were able to actually give ourselves that money so quickly.
And how have your goals kind of changed from that initial goal of just wanting to cover your rent to maybe not, you don't have to like give out your goals currently,
yeah,
but like how did they kind of change and develop over the last 4 years?
I would say that it's like never enough is what I would think. Like at that time, it felt like so much, and now it's, we hit a goal, whether that be amount of clients we want to work with or a new equipment we want to buy or a revenue goal or whatever, and you hit that, and by the time you hit it, you're already on to the next thing. So I don't even recognize that we're like what our goals really are, or like we think about things that we want, but then again, when you hit it, you're like, hey, that's not enough. Like, how do we keep going? Especially as we grow, there's just so many things we want to do. And I've actually had a conversation recently with Paige where I was like, we need to write down our goals so that when we hit them, like we can go back and actually recognize it.
Like check it off sort of.
Yeah, and which also like helps us feel good, and like our photographer, videographer, like looping him in on that so that we can all kind of like celebrate as a team and recognize these milestones instead of just having them in our heads or like speaking them out loud. And then when we hit it, we're like, okay, yeah, that's great, but now we have XYZ that we have to do. So like on to the next, like let's keep planning. So yeah, I think monetary, obviously it's nice to continue to make more money. Like we have a team we have to pay. We have this house now which is more overhead to have. So obviously to continue increasing our revenue, but I think working with really cool people, like clients that that we resonate with, or that we love the service, product, whatever it is, like just working with people that we're really passionate about what they have to provide, creating really cool content. So being more creative with it and investing in equipment that allows us to be more creative. These are also goals that I have aside from, whatever, wanting to make more money, just as we continue just having a little bit more fun with it.
So we've talked about this before, so it's kind of cheating because we can talk a lot outside of this podcast. So I already kind of know where I want to go, but and we talked about the fact that like sometimes we just hit goals and like you don't even think about it, like you just kind of mentioned. But does it sort of ruin it, or kind of the idea you had in your head? Is it similar to what you thought maybe the outcomes would feel like, or is it different?
Ruin what? Like, what do you mean ruin it?
Like, because you're so, with your three
like having a business?
Well, no, with your three words that you gave earlier was like driven, whatever, which kind of plays into the fact that when you hit, you're not thinking about the goals. You just, you've made a goal and then you hit it. But by the time you hit it, you already have your next goal. So it's like, you haven't really celebrated it. Does that kind of ruin the fun or like the achievement feeling of getting the goal? And do you think that, and if so, do you think it's necessary to keep kind of breaking through the next barrier, next goal, next ceiling?
I don't think so. I think that's just something that comes natural with when you have a career where you're responsible for not only paying yourself, but paying your team members. I think you just become more hungry to, again, not only make more money, but to create a working environment or to achieve things that just make people want to stay and work with you. Like even myself, like make me want to continue doing this. I don't think it ruins it. I think it's easy to overlook it, but we just have to take the time to like slow down for a second, recognize those. I guess that's in and of itself a goal for me this year, is to slow down and recognize those moments. But I would never say it ruins it. I think anybody could get those feelings no matter what they do in their life when things are busy and there's so many things racing through your mind to not recognize the cool things or success that you've had. I think it's really just slowing down and recognizing it. I mean, when I talk to people, I realize like when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, that is really cool. Like what I've done, or things that my business has achieved. No, I don't think it ever ruins it. I think it's not what you see so much in like the public sphere of like being an entrepreneur or being in a really cool career and it's all amazing and it's so fun all the time and I get to do X, Y, Z and like this, let's celebrate it, let's go. Like you really do have to take the time to slow down. So that's what I would say. I don't even know if that makes sense, but.
That makes sense. Okay, so now last thing before we kind of pivot a bit, but you personally, were there any, so kind of two-parter. Are you able to kind of pinpoint some sort of like major inflection point in whether it's business, just in life in general, that maybe puts you on this path or whatever? And second part, if you want to make it two, like is there maybe like a high that you constantly maybe go back to and a low that maybe you go back to?
It's like three questions. Okay. Major point in my life. I would honestly, I mean, like, it sounds bad, but like the whole like COVID, I don't think we would be here if we didn't have like the lockdown that we had, and I lost my job and wasn't doing anything and everything was online, because having everything go online now was when we were able to target that there was a need in the market for the services that we could provide. So at the beginning it was strategic direction focused on digital comms and marketing, specifically with a niche in social media. That like recognizing that and also having the time to think about even starting a business wouldn't have happened if like the pandemic and the lockdowns didn't happen. So as awful as those were, like if there's one thing I can look back on during those times was that like Paige and I came together and were able to do this really amazing thing. And she was even, I remember she texted me one day and she was like, it was literally, question for you. Would you want to start a business? And it was so casual, but it was just because we had nothing else going on. So there was never a moment in my life where I like was inspired by someone I saw or whatever and was like, oh, that's what I want to do. It was more so like just what we had to do at the time to get by. So there's that. Trying to think of like a high in business. I mean,
Not
high
necessarily in business. It can be just your personal
in
life.
just life.
Like just for Emily Koch. Maybe a high
Well, damn.
or a low.
Um, I mean, I think a high was definitely like graduating. I had a full-time job at the time, and also having KKC and Paige and I moved in together, because that was also really cool to be able to live with her and also do business and just like be in sort of like have that 9 to 5 and then also have the grind of doing the business together, and we were in it to win it, sort of. Those times are really fun. So that's sort of like a high, and then yeah, graduating and having that recognition is nice. Taking the business full time was also such a, not even from like an entrepreneurship standpoint, but just like such a shift in my own life of going from working more of a corporate 9 to 5 to saying, okay, I'm going to full time work for myself. Like that was really cool. And again, looking back to when we said, hey, we just want to make enough money to pay our rent, to now having been able to take it full time like 3 years ago, that was pretty amazing. In terms of like low, I don't know. I think I've been really, I don't want to use the word blessed, but to not have ever hit like a rock bottom or anything, super crazy. I think there was just times in life where it was really stressful, working all the time and then never having a break, because when I was working full time and doing KKC on the side, it was just never ending. So I found it hard to kind of have a good balance in life and see other people and have some free time and just be able to kind of mentally reset. But I don't know if I have like a specific moment, even in my personal life, where it was like really hard. I think I've just been through some stressful times and have needed to find ways to kind of get around that.
Nice.
Luckily, I guess.
Okay. Okay, that's one part. Finishing off from that, now transitioning to a little bit more fun here. What do you like to do to decompress?
Read.
What do you like to read? What do you like to read, Emily?
Just some books, I don't know. I like having like alone time to do that and just like be in quiet, spending time with loved ones, obviously, and trying to like not bring work into it. Go to the gym, I guess. I work out, try to do that pretty regularly. I don't know. That's what I say. I don't do anything crazy. Like work out, read, and then just hang out with friends and family.
Nice. Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. What about traveling?
Do I travel to relax? Yeah, I like traveling. I think it's cool how I'm able to travel because I work for myself. I don't have to, I don't have to submit, a week off and hope that gets approved. I kind of just say, hey, I'm going to travel at this time. Like, hey, let's just make sure that we can plan it accordingly and it all works out. There's no boss I have to clear it by. So I could technically travel for, I'm going away for, well, we're going away, but I'm going away for about a month and a few months. So like, that's not something I'd be able to do if I think if I wasn't working for myself. But yeah, I like to travel. I think also with traveling though, because work is kind of 24/7, it can be interesting sometimes to try to, as much as you plan and prep in advance, like there's still stuff that's going to come up. So to try to like make that work while you're away, especially when you're in a different time zone. But yeah, I love traveling. As I said, I'm from Nova Scotia, so I try to get back home a couple times a year to see my family. And that to me is, traveling other places is nice, but when I can go home with my family and, just chill, that's also like super relaxing for me. And it's like nice to be surrounded by people I know or in an area I'm familiar with where I grew up, because I moved here and didn't know anybody. So that is also really relaxing for me. It's just to be able to go home and see my family.
Yeah. I think when we travel, I was talking to our mutual Travis the other day.
Okay.
He's going to be on this as well. But he was saying like, yeah, you guys travel a lot or whatever. And I was like, well, first of all,
we travel a lot.
No, I was like, first of all, I think it just looks like it because maybe we save content or bank content, which I've talked about before.
Yeah.
And it
looks like
I'm not just posting while we're there. It's like first of all, I never post when I'm there anyway, and posted after I'm back to begin with. You do. A story maybe, but I don't
Yeah.
post my posts or anything until after. I guess I did a couple reels and Turks.
You like to collect them. You like to collect stuff.
Yeah, I just like to collect and then have it all. So
But we take so much content
I
because
know.
we're creators. So
I know, but so that's my point. A, it looks like maybe we're away all the time, but we're not. B, I also was like, well, when me and Emily are away, and you kind of just touched it right there, there's at least like 2 hours a day where we're like working on the computer. Maybe like more one day, less another day. But does that bother you at all? How does that feel?
no, I think it's just the name of the game, you know, like you're never gonna catch me complaining about, you know, being able to travel a lot and working for myself or whatever. Like that's just is what it is. If you want to start a business and work for yourself full time, like there's really no way around that unless you grow to the multi-billion-dollar scale and you just had people doing everything for you. But even then there's, you know, different pressures. You know, I never take it for granted that I am able to travel and I don't have to book the time off. I can kind of just do it. I don't think it ruins it. I think it can be frustrating, like with, I think, anybody who had to do work, or if you went on vacation and did schoolwork doing Android essays, like that's frustrating. But it doesn't ruin it. It just in the moment can feel really frustrating, or in the moment feels like there's so many things I have to do. But in reality, I could probably, you know, go spend my day out doing whatever and then come back at night or get up early and get a few things done. So no, I would never say it ruins it. It's just, it is what it is.
What's the most fun experience you've ever had?
In my life?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm like, am I lame? I don't know. I mean, definitely, it would for sure be traveling. I think it was really fun when we went to Paris. It was just like crazy because we went for like 4 days, which was like, who travels to Europe for 4 days? So that was just wild. That was really fun. And I mean, who doesn't love France? I think it was really fun the first year that you came back home and like came to Nova Scotia. And not that you hadn't met my parents yet, but like met my whole family. And, you know, we're there in the summer, which Nova Scotia is beautiful in the summer. You should go.
It is beautiful. One of my favorite.
Took that for granted.
What's it
when
called?
I moved here.
One of my favorite sensational locations.
That was really fun because it was cool because I obviously moved here. And when we started dating, I like met your whole family. This is where you're from. So it was like me living in the city you're at and where you have all your friends and family. And then you coming back home was the first time I felt like I was in my element, or like I was like, now you're on my turf sort of. So that was cool. And I was like showing you around where I grew up, or like my high school, or like the beaches I would go to, or, you know, restaurants and whatever, like meeting some of my high school friends. So that was really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So building on that, you're maybe the funnest part. What's your favorite place in the world?
Probably my home, Halifax.
Halifax?
I think so, yeah. I mean, yeah, I love Turks and Caicos is nice, but that's also where you grew up going, so that might be your favorite place. But for me, it's like, I didn't travel too much when I was young. And again, I didn't realize how amazing, like, Halifax and like what I had at my fingertips being there and then I moved here and I was like, what do you do in the summer? Like, where's the beach or the water you swim in? And then I went to Mooney's Bay and I was like, this is really gross. So yeah, I think like for sure, like back home, like, and just being able to see my family, like 100 hands down, favorite place. We'll have a cottage there one day.
Cottage?
Yeah.
You want to have a cottage there?
For sure.
Try and make it happen. Every time we go somewhere, we're like...
That and Turks.
Every time we go somewhere, we're like, kind of need a place here. Yeah. Like 7 properties later.
Yeah, I think so.
Like trying to dream big.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I think mine is like, you said Turks and Caicos. It's probably my favorite place on earth, but I think it just, when you ask people that question, it comes down to like their nostalgia.
Yeah, and like your connections to it.
Exactly, yeah. Like what they like. Where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years? Not traveling, whatever, but like what we were talking about goals. No, we were talking about goals earlier. Like, where do you see? Maybe is there like some sort of overarching goal for you, or is it just kind of like smaller goals and you just keep building?
I mean, I think Paige and I probably have a similar goal of, I love being so hands-on, and we are also perfectionists, so it's a little bit hard for us to let go of control. But I would love to build KKC to the point where, maybe we have a couple other super trusted team members that we love, and they're able to kind of help us in certain ways and augment our processes so that Paige and I don't have to do, be there as much. I think too, as we get older and, if we want to start families and stuff, that's just something naturally that's going to happen. Like we can't be working 24/7. So just being able to grow, I think a better team, not a better team, just to grow an amazing team that we trust and we love that can help us. And then also like being in KUVAHAUS, I think having that, like I would love for when this sort of pops off or gains more popularity and we have people in the space, all the time, and it just becomes like a sort of a notable place to go for creators in Ottawa. So to have that reputation, but also again, it's nice because it also offers sort of recurring revenue that doesn't require much management, So kind of investing more in this space to see that grow and also grow KKC's, I think, team capacity a little bit more. Yeah. Other than that, though, in like terms of life, like we'll see.
Nice. Yeah, it's just anything. It's generic. Okay, last question, and we'll wrap it up. What is the best advice that you would give to somebody or yourself maybe 5 to 10 years ago? So let's say the
Oh my God, I was 16, 10 years ago.
Let's say the 17 to 21-year-old.
I feel like this is really cliche, but like life's just starting, or like it's just not that deep. Like, I remember you'd be in university or high school and you get grades back and you'd be like, oh, this is the end of the world. Like, I remember going to teachers and being like, you dropped my average by 1%. Like,
Yeah.
How do I make up for it?
Literally doesn't matter.
I think it matters for sure. And I think that it develops you into your school or whatever, like those young years develop you into the person you're going to be when you kind of fully hit adulthood. But it's not the end of the world, I think, because I would get really upset or you'd cry over certain things or something would happen and you're like, how am I going to get past this? And it's fine. Just like breathe through it and everything will work out. Or, even if it's hard at the time, it is an obstacle that you'll push through. So just have a little bit more grace with yourself while also still being as driven and determined. And a piece of advice I would give to people who want to start a business is that you can start a business and go full throttle and 100% into it, or you can do what we did and start it as a side hustle while you still maintain a 9 to 5. So you have steady income coming in and it's less stressful. It doesn't always have to be the stuff that you see online about like, I'm an entrepreneur and I do this and this. Like it can be for sure, but it can also be something that's slower and more gentle and just something you enjoy doing on the side that grows into your full-time, or you can keep it as a side hustle. But everybody has a skill set, I think, that can be monetized. So kind of just do with that what you will and slow down and have some more grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, shake on it.
Dab me up. Big one.